So, among devas and asuras, sometimes the devas win. When devas win, they go up and up. When the asuras win, the asuras go down and down. Amazing, ji. Victory takes you. That means when you are successful in committing a crime, you don't get a heaven. Your papam grows and you go down and down. It's amazing. This is some point to be made. Asura's victory do not take them up and up. Asura's victory takes them down and down and down and down to the level of plants and trees and insects and etc. But these are not important. What is important is when you have neither more papa nor less papa, when you are something, Mishra equality. Ubhaya samya. When gods and asuras, meaning within me, when the right thinking in me wins, when my right thinking wins, then I go up and down. When my wrong thinking wins, meaning what? I get subjugated by wrong thinking. My wrong thinking subjugates me, conquers me. Meaning when I come under the influence of wrong thinking, then I go down and down. But if there is a balance between the right and wrong thinking, meaning what? There is not too much of imbalance, there is a certain balance. Sometimes I am right, sometimes I am wrong, sometimes I am right, sometimes I am wrong. Kind of a balance. I am neither too right and too wrong. Sometimes right, sometimes wrong. Then I am reborn as a human being. Do you follow that? When I am very right, I become a devata. I go up and up and up and up. When I become too wrong, I go down and down and down and down. When I am sometimes right, sometimes wrong, ठीक है, कभी ठीक हो. Sometimes I tell a lie, sometimes I tell the truth. 50% right, 50% wrong. Proportionately right and proportionately wrong. Then I become what? I come back as a human being to say South Delhi. Come back to South Delhi. By that time things will be so expensive. They have problems. But this particular thing we have to get the sense out of it. Is it not true? Is it not true? Like in business. If you do very well, you go up and up and up. You do very badly in business, then you go down and down. Supposing you are doing a little bad, ठीक है, a few losses and a few gains, then remain the same. These are all just the sense. We have to capture the basic principle. The basic principle is this. When you do very well, you go up and up. You do very badly, then you go down and down. If you are just, so good, so bad, then you remain stationary. What they call break even. Break even in your language. Break even. This is over the topic. And there is nothing mysterious about, there is nothing wrong in this popular phrase that either through punya karma takes you to heaven, Papa karma takes you to hell. Mishra karma brings you back to human beings where you can both be happy and unhappy. In heaven you are not unhappy, you are ever happy. In heaven you are only pleasure, 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 pleasure. You have no time for crying. Because the call of the pleasures is so, incessant. So you have to respond to the call of the pleasures. So you have no time for pain. In hell you have no time for pleasure because the call of the pain, there is pain every time inflicted on you incessantly. But as a human being, I have time for pleasure, I also have time for pain. I am available for both pleasure. Where you are able to experience both pleasure and pain, Vairagyam is available. Vairagyam is possible. It's a very beautiful thing. People may dismiss it, saying, "ये तो बहुत सुन लिया वेता है." ऐसा नहीं है. You have to be able to discern between pleasure. When you see both pleasure and pain, you become a thinker. When you see the pleasure, you see the limitation of it. When you see the pain, you see the pain of it. You become reflective. Pain is undesirable. Pleasure is frightening. It is temporary. Pleasure is temporary. Pleasure is temporary and therefore it's not attractive. Pain is frightening, therefore it's not attractive. And therefore only a Manushya is more fit for Vairagyam and Brahma Vidya. That is why Devatas envy human birth. And even Naraka, people who are in hell also envy human birth. Therefore, always appreciate that human embodiment is most beautiful. Not because it happens to be your embodiment. It's not that subjective, self-satisfaction. It's not that self-satisfaction. Human embodiment is great because it happens to be mine. Like Delhi is a wonderful city because it happens to be my city. Delhi is great until you get onto the roads. There is something called objective thinking. Human embodiment, without subjectivity, you can always understand that. Human embodiment is great. Human embodiment is great. You can close this in a half. Human embodiment is great because it gives me an opportunity to see both the pleasure and pain. And also it gives me an opportunity to understand the truth. That is why Bahunam Narajanma Durlabham. When we hear this phrase, human embodiment is the rarest, they interpret it as human embodiment is the greatest on the earth. Is wrong. Human embodiment is Durlabham in creation. That is the Shastra. Any embodiment where I can have both pleasure and pain and think to know the truth is a Durlabham. Durlabham means valuable ityartha. Rare means valuable. What is rare need not be valuable. All that is rare need not be valuable. What is valuable may be rare, that's different. But anything that is rare need not be valuable. Very rare is a person who has got some horns. Does it mean to say that horns are very valuable? Human embodiment is highly valuable. Thus, be happy to have been born as a human being. Because there are too many human beings, don't look upon it as insignificant. There is so much of life around, so you lose value for life. There is so much of life around. There is so much of life around. So many people around. Therefore, when somebody dies and you don't care, oh, there's so many people, let them go, trash. In America, there are less number of people, therefore they have value for life. They would like to save every life. But in India, there is so much of life around, teeming with people. And supposing 10 people, 20 people die, they don't even mention it on TV. 10-20 के लिए क्या टाइम वेस्ट करना. So at least 1,000,000 चले गए तब it deserves a mention on TV. 10-12 लोग ऐसे भी चलते रहते हैं रोज. This is a wrong thing. Human life is sacred, is highly valuable. All life is sacred, but human life is valuable. All life is sacred. It happens to be the truth. All life is sacred, but human life is valuable. When we say human life is valuable, it is not meant to be interpreted that we need to save humanity even at the cost of others. ऐसा नहीं है. Human life is valuable so that one can appreciate, admire his own situation as a human being so that he can live his life more profitably. Well, then, te evam kaniyastvat. Te evam kaniyastvat abhibhuyamanaha. Gods being fewer in number, they are always vanquished. Abhibhuyama, they are overwhelmed. Gods are always overwhelmed by the demons, the asuras. Meaning in me, the reasoning is vanquished by impulses. Because the reasoning is less frequent. Impulses are incessantly frequent. Impulses are incessantly frequent. Whereas reasoning is less frequent. I reason less frequently. Whereas impulse manifests more frequently. Therefore I can say there is less reasoning in me and more impulses. Kaniyastvad abhibhuyamana, and therefore it is always overwhelmed. Asuraihi, by the asuras. Gods are always overwhelmed by asuras. Devaha, gods. Bahulyatvat asuranam. Why is reasoning always overwhelmed by the impulses? Because impulses have numbers. Baba. Impulses have numbers. Because these days, I think this numbers being the strength was there right from the creation. Numbers are your strength. That is why in India people always wanted to have more children, because numbers matter. When I was a child, I hardly used to come across anybody having one son and one daughter. Generally most of the people have 5 boys, 7 daughters, 7 girls, and 9 boys and 5 girls, etc. All in dozens, scores of children. Scores of children, tens of children, yes. भगवान तो सबको देते हैं भोजन में. Bahulyat asuranam, numbers man. Therefore, if man is weak, that is because he is less frequent in reasoning and more frequent in impulse. mouses. Kim kritavantaha. Therefore, what did the devas do to overcome this problem? You know, asuras may be more in number, but they can't think. They are powerful, all right, but they are not intelligent. Bhagavan is also great, I tell you. God gives the asuras power and takes away their intelligence. Like Bhasmasura, Shiva gave him the power but took away dimag. That is why when Vishnu came in the form of a Mohini, Bhasmasura said, I am in love with you, let us get married. He said, shut up. I am a Bharatanatyam dancer. You have to learn my dancing. You have to also be a dancer. Because compatibility is between two dancers, not between one dancer and the other, a clumsy walker. Then he said, all right, I will learn. All right, first mudra is like this. And he says, all right. Reduced to ashes. Why? At that time, he was more under the grip of an impulse. He was more in the grip of the desire for that girl, Mohini. He was seized by the lust for her. At that time, does intelligence work? Dimag kaam karta hai? When you are seized by the desire for a girl, does dimag kaam karta hai? That is why Vishnu said, do like this. He said, this is the first mudra, prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu. And he says, okay, Om Sahana Bhavatu, reduced to ashes. The only time when Sahana Bhavatu was discontinued in the middle. The man was reduced to ashes. That's why, please take heart from this fact. The evil may be powerful but unintelligent, whereas the reasoning may be less powerful but it is intelligent. It can make itself powerful through thinking, called buddhi balam. Dik kshatriya balam brahma balameva balam, he said. You know Vishwamitra? You don't know the story? You don't know? Good G, you don't know, so that I can continue the class. Supposing all that I need to say, if you already know, then what do I do? Hey Rama, you're dangerous. When Vishwamitra, the king, when he was a king, went to have the darshan of Vasishtha. Vasishtha was living with his Kamadhenu. Then Kamadhenu had a power to feed thousands of people. This cow, by her grace, was able to feed. Then Vishwamitra said, that kind of a cow should live with the king, because it will be more useful for a king so that he can feed. Vasishtha said, no, he is my mother. This Kamadhenu is like my mother. I can't part from my mother. And he said, no, you have to give it to me. Vishwamitra insisted. Vasishtha said, no, I can't part from Kamadhenu, like my mother. Then Vishwamitra wanted to take away the cow by force. So there was a war between, Vasishtha was sitting quiet and Vishwamitra was trying to fight him, and all his arrows would come and bow down in front of Vasishtha. You know, arrow would come and bow down in front. Arrows would come and bow down. They didn't touch Vasishtha. And Vishwamitra says, what is happening to all the arrows? All the weapons? They are just losing their power in front of Vasishtha because of tapas. He was right. He had the power of reasoning, he had the power of penance, he had the power of the truth. He had the power of the truth. Vishwamitra had the power of arrows. But the arrows went and bowed before the truth. Then Vishwamitra comes and says the most famous sentence, Dhik Kshatriya Balam Brahma Balameva Balam. This material power is nothing. The power of truth alone is the real power. Don't translate it in a shoddy manner. The power of Kshatriyas is nothing. The power of Brahmanas is great. It is all meaningless. People are stupid. They don't know. What is this power of Kshatriyas and power of Brahmana? There is only material power and power of the truth. Dhik Kshatriya Bala means fie on, meaning shame on the material power. The power of truth alone is the power. That means what? Impulses may be strong, powerful, but they ultimately bow before the power of the truth. Take heart from this fact. Continue to be right. Continue to be right. Continue to be right. All impulses have to lose their fangs before that power of being right, power of being, power of truth. Therefore, Devatas, because they were intelligent, they used their intelligence to vanquish Asuras. What did they do to vanquish? Despite fewer in number, they wanted to really vanquish, destroy the Asuras. What did they do? Ityuchyate. Now the answer is given. The Shruti says this is what the Devatas did. What did they do? Te Devaha, these Devas, Asuraihi Abhibhuyamanaha. Every time being overwhelmed by the Asuras, these Devas being overwhelmed by Asuras every time, Ha Kila Vuchuhu Uktavantaha, they said to themselves, Uktavantaha, apne aap se kahne lage. Katham, what did they say to themselves? Hanta, they gathered together, the Devas, had a conference and said, look, Hanta, look, Idanim, now, Asmin Yajne, if we can't vanquish the Asuras by our muscle power, by our physical power, then we should take the help of the truth to vanquish them. That is why even reasoning cannot destroy impulses without taking the help of the truth. Bahut badi baat hai. Bahut badi baat hai. Even logic cannot do anything. You have to be a student of truth to control yourself. Your mere brightness can't help. Your mere logic doesn't help. You have to be a student of the truth. That's why here he says, Hanta idanim asmin yajna, in this worship to the truth. Yajna is here to be taken as a worship by means of which you invoke the grace of the truth. You take the help of the truth. You take the help of Ishvara, you take the help of God. If you have trust in truth, truth will never let you down. Akka. If you have no trust in truth, do you know what is the definition of the truth? Says that truth, there is a truth and there is law of karma, no matter whatever result I get. It is not that only when I am favored I accept the presence of the truth. Existence of truth, existence of God is not conditional to my getting good results. I get results according to my prarabdha and whatever it is. But when I trust that there is something called truth, which is the root of the universe, which is the root of my mind, and in this creation the law of karma is there, and therefore let me continue to make the best of that law of karma. When I have that trust in truth, it will never be unfair to me. It will never be unfair to me. It will always give me the results in proportion to, in keeping with my behavior and my actions. With that trust you go on. It will always help you. But as an experiment, if you say, hey, agar Bhagavan ho to, there is no real conviction. If your interaction with God is more on the basis of hearsay. Hearsay means, popular belief. But if you see for yourself, this universe can't exist without a source. Nor is life possible within the creation without the law of causation. Law of causation is a truth inside the creation, and Brahman is the truth behind the creation. There is one truth called the law of karma inside the creation. There is another truth called Brahma, which is the truth behind the creation. In this manner, if you have great trust in truth, it will never let you down. That's called invoking the grace of. And when you have that conviction, that perception, then you will, for every small little thing, you say, hey Bhagavan, help me. Hey Bhagavan, help me. Hey Bhagavan, help me doesn't make you a simple religious person, it makes you a wise person, understand? A religious person is a believer. But you are not a believer, you understand there is, then you are no longer merely blindly religious, you are wise. Yes, I like that word. You are a jnani, not merely a believer. You are not a believer. When you go to the temple also, you will go to the temple with your head held high, going to the portals to the truth. Say Bhagavan. Because anyway I need the help of the truth. चुप चुप के जाने की जरूरत नहीं. जब तक आप चुप चुप के मंदिर जाते हैं, that means you have no. What is there? Bhagavan is everywhere, but temple is nice, where you can just relax and think on it. उसमें क्या है? One doesn't have to. You don't have to do chup chup ke bindi. Bindi or no bindi, it doesn't matter at all. But do whatever you do with conviction. With total conviction. Not on hearsay. You can't enjoy what you do on hearsay. Okay, ji. Devatas wanted to vanquish the Asuras. And they know with their being fewer in number, they can't. Now I am bringing it to the person. Reasoning cannot even vanquish. Reasoning by just reasoning. Mere logic cannot destroy the impulses. But if the logic takes the help of the truth, it can vanquish the impulses. Shruti Sammata Yukti can destroy the impulses. Shruti Sammata Yukti, mere logic now. This is what is called Devaha Asuraiha Vivimanaha Kela Uchu Uktavada Katham Hanta Idanim Asmin Yajne. What is the name of that Yajna worship? Jyotishtoma. Jyotishtoma is a particular ritual in which you invoke God's grace for great accomplishment. Jyotishtoma. Jyotishtoma is done for inner strength to vanquish. Inner strength to vanquish thee. Like a Nitya Karmaji. Jyotishtome. Udgitena. Through Udgita. The Devatas now say, let us invoke the grace of truth through this ritual called Jyotishtoma by means of a mantra called Udgita. Udgita. You know, what is Udgita? It will all come later on, but let me give you a bird's eye view. Udgatri, the one who recites Samaveda is called Udgatri. Hotri, Hota, the one who recites Rigveda is called Hotri, Hota. The one who recites Yajurveda is called Adhvaryu. And the one who recites Samaveda is called Udgata. That particular portion which he recites in Jyotishtoma is called Udgita. Udgita is what is recited by Udgata. Is called Udgita. And the entire Udgita is designated by Omkara. Omkara is the Udgita ultimately, as we are going to see. Om is Udgita. Om is Udgita. Udgitena. And when you recite it, it's pertaining to the truth. Very beautifully, if one has patience. Omkara cannot pertain to anything else. You cannot interpret Omkara to mean anything other than the truth. Om, the source of the waking, dream and sleep. Can it be an object? The source of the waking, the source of the dream, the source of their negation, the source of the Vyakritam, the source of the Avyakritam, the source of the manifest objects and the source of the unmanifest objects. Can it be another object? Om choicelessly means the truth. It can't be interpreted differently. It means only Parameshwar, Jagat-Karana. Therefore here the Devatas say, with the help of the Udgita in Jyotishtoma, with the help of Udgita, let us invoke the grace of the truth by which we can vanquish the Asuras. We'll continue all this. Hanta idanim asmin yajne jyotishtome udgitena udgita karma padartha kartru swarupa ashrayanena. Up to that means by identifying, by taking shelter in the mukhya prana, the breath, which is sinless. And it is the mukhya prana that is considered to be Udgita karma padartha kartru swarupa. In oneself, the reciter is mukhya prana. In oneself, the deva is reasoning. In oneself, the asura is impulse. In oneself, Udgita is Omkara. In oneself, the reciter of it is vitality. Om. Do the eyes recite? Do the eyes recite? स्वामी जी सोचना पड़ेगा. क्या सोचना है जी? जहाँ सोचने की जरूरत नहीं वहां पर सोचते रहते हैं. जहाँ सोचना है वहां पर नहीं सोचते हैं. Eyes don't recite. Do ears recite? Does the speech recite? It looks as though the speech recites. Because for reciting you require vitality, Mukhya Prana. Mukhya Prana means the vitality. It is the Mukhya Prana that provides energy to all the senses. Therefore, for reciting Om or Veda, in myself the reciter is Mukhya Prana. Eyes and ears, all of them are called like Devatas. Senses are Devatas. Mukhya Prana is the Udgatri. जी समझ में आ रहा है? समझ में नहीं आया तो उसको आना ही पड़ेंगे. दूसरा कोई विकल्प है ही नहीं. In myself, who are the asuras? Impulses. In myself, who are the devatas? The reasoning and the senses, the eyes and ears, the speech, etc. In myself, what is the Samaveda? Om. In myself, who is a reciter Udgata? Mukhya Prana. The senses have always been losing the battle with the impulses. My senses with the reasoning, my reasoning has always been at the losing end. Therefore, whenever my reason doesn't work, my eyes commit sins, my ears commit sins, my speech commits sin. Because my reasoning is failing. When my reasoning fails, my senses become tempted. When my senses are tempted, they commit sins. That means all our senses are tainted with sin. Baba. I'll try to explain it. It's very beautiful. Try to understand. ज़्यादा नखरा नहीं करना, समझना है. I see and get tempted. I see and commit the sin. I hear and commit the sin. I taste and commit the sin. I touch and commit the sin. I smell and commit the sin. Sometimes I say and that means all our faculties are tainted by sins. They're all taintable by sins. Does the vitality get tempted? Vitality is not a sense organ. Mukhya Prana is not a sense organ. Therefore, all the senses, all the devatas in the form of the senses said, let us take shelter in the Mukhya Prana. Let us take shelter in the Mukhya Prana. And the Mukhya Prana is going to destroy the Asuras. How is it going to destroy the Asuras? Mukhya Prana takes the help of the truth. How does it invoke the grace of the truth? By reciting Udgita. And Udgita pertains to the truth. Thus, by becoming dedicated to the truth, we will become stronger and we will destroy the Asuras. Ultimately, what is the message? However strong is your vitality, or however strong is your logic, you cannot overcome the impulses without turning to the truth. Yes. He is the message of the story. If it is interpreted in any less than that, it is all useless. And the story is nothing. Asuran therefore here, Shravanena, Swarupa Ashrayanena, Atyayama, may us, may we vanquish them. Atyayama, Atigachamaha, we will excel them. God's thought, let us excel the Asuras. Let us overpower the Asuras by taking shelter in the Mukhya Prana, which Mukhya Prana will turn to the truth. And when Mukhya Prana turns to the truth, we all will be turning to the truth. And when we all turn to the truth will give us the extra power by which we can vanquish the impulses. Does this story make sense or not? Does it make sense? They have their own ways of talking. It's very beautiful. Because now when we use the word Devaha, we think more as Devas. Asuras we mean Asuras. But in those days, human beings being more brilliant, whenever they heard the Devas in us was naturally coming. Asura, whenever they heard the word Asura, it was coming to them naturally, the Asura. When now I have to make a struggle to interpret it. Now I have to make a struggle, but in those days they were not struggling. That is why everything pictorially they put only the phenomenon within. Everything was, all Puranas are only portrayal of the within. Even Mahabharata was a portrayal of the within. Now we have to make a struggle to interpret it, but for them it was natural. So how can we say they could have been more straight? What is more straight? For them it was straight. For them it was straight. And when I lose the straight path and take to Teda path, then I look for straight path. ऐसे तो मैंने तो आपको बताया था straight ही path, आपने चले गए टेढ़ा path. I showed you the straight path, then you took to a टेढ़ा path, and now you are asking why did you not show me the straight path? मैंने आपको बताया था straight path. Therefore, a lot of criticism that you level against the old people, the ancient people, a lot of it is not just. Because the way their thought, what was prachalitam at that time we must remember. What was prachalitam at that time was, the word Deva and Asura meant something within. Then they pictorially explained. But for us, that pictorial details became reality. The symbols became the truth. And what the symbols are for, that we tricolor, remembering only three colors we register, but as values we forget them. Are you able to follow? Therefore, here Bhagavan says, Udgithena udgitha karma padartha kartra swarupa ashrayanena atyayama atigachama. And then it says, Asuran abhibhuya, having overcome the Asuras, Swam Devabhavam, our own divinity. Devabhavam means our divinity, that conforms to the truth. Swam Devabhavam, Shastra Prakashitam, which is the topic of the Shastras. Our divinity is the topic of the Shastra. Our divinity is the topic of that we are capable of. We are capable of the best, we are capable of reasoning, we are capable of dharma, and ultimately we are capable of understanding the truth. That is called Devatvam. Swam Devabhavam Shastra Prakashitam Pratipadya, having achieved back our original status. Pratipadyamahe, let us achieve. So Devatas had a conference and they said to themselves, let us invoke the grace of the truth and vanquish the asuras and gain back our status of being Devas. Pratipadyamahe. Iti, in this manner, Uktavantaha, they said, Anyonyam, to one another. God said to one another, let us do something to vanquish the asura. It has a sense to convey. You see, a human being, as long as he thinks he can't do anything, he can't do anything. But when he says, let me do something, and that something is always taking the help of the truth. You tried your best to succeed, let us say, and you did not succeed, and ultimately what do you do, Ji? Turn to the truth. That is the only thing. You can only think of what able will help me. Because that prayer takes place in the truth. It takes place in the truth, pertains to the truth. How can it go ineffective? I don't think. In my thinking it doesn't. It's not like that. Every prayer has its result. Therefore, whenever you have a problem, you can always do your best. Along with the best, also offer a prayer. Prayer takes place in your being, pertains to your being, the truth. How can it not have any result? It will go without any effect. If you think of truth very seriously in your heart, it will have a result. If casually, like a bubble, casually you think and forget it, and you will have casual result. Sometimes the casual result will be casualty result. Ramachandra, therefore, when it comes to prayers, do serious. Enjoy being quiet and praying for what you need. In fact, it is one of the most, next to reflection, what is most interesting next to reflection, what is most interesting next to reflection is prayer. Silent, because whenever you have to pray, you become silent. That is very interesting. Just to be quiet, silent and pray. Silent, you pray in your heart. You milega, whatever result comes. You leave the result, you don't worry. It is not that if you get the result, then you continue the prayer, and if you don't get the result, then you lose faith in the prayer. Ye sari hai na, chakkar hai. That means no conviction in, no trust in the law of karma, etc. Continue prayer. Continue prayer for what you need. Okay, ji. Swamdev, another few minutes. Deva bhavam shastra prakashitam pratipadyamahe iti uktavantaha anyonyam udgita karma padartha kartru swarupa ashrayanam cha jnana karmabhyam. The senses taking shelter in mukhya prana is by way of prayer and meditation. Reciting prayer. When you recite a prayer, that is what is called taking shelter in mukhya prana. When you meditate on mukhya prana, that is called taking shelter in mukhya prana, not indulging in the senses. When I recite, I am taking shelter in mukhya prana. The senses, that means as an individual I am taking shelter in mukhya prana. Because as the reciter, who is the reciter? Mukhya prana. Reciting. And meditation on, upasana on mukhya prana. Reciting Omkara and meditation on mukhya prana is what is called karma jnana abhyam. These are the two things, prayer and meditation. Prayer and meditation on mukhya prana. Omkara prayer and meditation on Mukhya Prana as the secretary of the truth. Do you remember that? In Chandogya? What is the secretary? Haji, personal secretary. Personal secretary means what? Directly rooted in the truth. Directly rooted in the truth. Directly in touch with the truth. That is called personal secretary. The one who is always directly in touch with the minister is called personal secretary. Haji? वही personal secretary, private secretary. Privately personal secretary. He is called really, is in touch with you. Mukhya Prana is directly in touch with the truth. We call it rooted in the truth. Without Mukhya Prana there is no Jiva. Presupposing Mukhya Prana is the Jiva. Presupposing Mukhya Prana are the senses. Not presupposing the senses is the Mukhya Prana. Mukhya Prana, there is a Pratipatti Krama between Mukhya Prana and the senses. Senses exist presupposing Mukhya Prana. Not Mukhya Prana exists. Therefore, who is the personal secretary of truth? Mukhya Prana. Thus, meditating upon Mukhya Prana as directly in touch with the truth, called Upasana. These two are advocated by Vedanta to be able to control impulses. In order to destroy the asuras in oneself, what is the way by which you can destroy the impulses? Prayer and meditation upon the Mukhya Prana as rooted in the truth. If Mukhya Prana is rooted in the truth, then the senses are also Paramparaya rooted in the truth. The whole universe is Paramparaya rooted in the truth. In this manner you meditate upon the Mukhya Prana as rooted in the truth, not rooted in the body. Will it not destroy the impulses? If your attention turns from the world to the source, will it not destroy the impulses? In fact, what else can destroy the impulses? Turning your attention from the objects to the source. Does it not make sense? मुझे तो बहुत ही अच्छा लग रहा है जी. I mean, I feel it is genius, the stroke of genius. Otherwise, everything else is a bluff. Oh, if one object attracts you, then divert your attention to another object is a bluff. Because when you divert your attention to another object, that also can cause the same problem as the previous object. Therefore, you give divorce to one girl and marry another girl thinking that she is going to be better, then later on you will discover that she was her older sister. And what will you do? Ichna yoga. Therefore, what Shruti says is a stroke of genius. If you have to handle an impulse, you have to turn to the truth. There is no other way. This is the message. We will continue it later. Thagaya. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Udishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.